Good morning and welcome to Maryland Today. My name is Jeff St. Pierre, and it's a pleasure to have this wonderful woman back in the studio again with me, Nina Heck. She's the Director of Counseling and Client Services for Consumer Credit Counseling Service of Maryland and Delaware. Nina, thank you so much for coming by.
Thank you, Jeff, for having me.
Well, it's February, and that means we've got Valentine's Day here. So today we're going to talk a little bit about finance for couples. So they say that love conquers all, but when it comes to money, there can be some interesting discussions that go on. Money management is a major source of conflict in relationships. In fact, it's often listed as a contributing factor when people do or if they do get a divorce. So how can couples avoid situations like this?
So obviously, communication is a must.
What?
This needs to be an open conversation, and you need to have it sooner rather than later. It's just so very important that before couples get married that they talk about money and how it affects the relationship.
With that said, it sort of sounds like money isn't always an easy topic for couples to discuss. I understand the National Foundation for Credit Counseling recently completed a survey on this topic. What did that survey find?
They did, Jeff, and what the survey results were is that 70% of soon-to-be married couples were already having negative feelings about discussing their money with their fiancés. Another 20% were too afraid to even discuss it because of leading to arguments or fights or possibly ending their relationship, which is really sad.
Yeah, it is. And it's funny, like I'm very open about things like that in my relationship. It doesn't really bother me to talk about things like that, but I find that interesting. So why do you think that so many of us fear talking about money with the people that we love?
I think because money represents a couple of different things to people. You know, in one scenario, it's success and power. In other, it means love and happiness. So depending on where you're at in that train of thought, that's going to have a reaction with this couple as to, you know, how they're going to talk about money. It's also very private. It's an issue that a lot of people just like to put to the side. They don't like to discuss it unless bad things are happening. And then again, you can still have people that want to just push it, bury it, and not expose it. So it's a very hard subject, and it can lead to a lot of, you know, concern in a relationship.
It's easy for me. I don't have any. So there you go.
Okay.
Stick with me or leave. That's your option, right? All right. Well, getting serious, despite these obstacles, why do couples who are serious about each other need to share their views on money management?
It obviously is going to be the basis for their lives together. They need to know where they stand financially and what their goals are and what money represents to both of them and how this is going to direct them in the course of whether they're going to live together, become married. They need to understand each other's thought processes for using money and what it means to them. Yeah,
makes perfect sense to me. So why don't we take a look at some of the things couples need to discuss before they say, I do? What's the first thing that you'd recommend they talk about?
We learn a lot from our families. So obviously, if you've been someone who grew up in a household, let's take the last couple of years where we've had the major foreclosure crisis, you know, a lot of people lost their homes. Many people lost jobs. If you were a child in this household, this is what your view of money is. There could have been a lot of arguing. There could have been a lot of unhappiness that was directly related to all of this happening. So this kind of sticks in your mind, and this is your vision of how finances are going to work. And that's very difficult to overcome. So that's why it's so very important to be open and discuss these things and know where each of you stand.
So you've taken a look at how your past affects your financial viewpoint. What else do you need to know here?
You need to understand how money works. So you have to know if you have a person who likes to spend a lot of money versus somebody who likes to save a lot of money. It's very important that if the money runs out, what are we going to do? So you have to have more or less a game plan that each of you are striving towards. It's okay if you have differences in opinions. It's funny, I often see, I know with my own children, opposites attract. You have one that wants to spend and the other wants to save. And that can work really well together as long as you both understand where those limits are.
Yeah. Well, once a couple sits down and actually talks all these things out and discusses this, they explore how they feel about money. What is the next step?
Well, it's funny because the idea of for better or worse includes money and how you manage your finances. So one of the things you don't want to do is if you find that someone has a problem or maybe they've come from a background where money is very difficult to talk about, the last thing you need to do is to try to shame this person or try to avoid the discussion altogether because you can see that it brings up bad feelings. It's got to be a part of your life. It's going to be a part of your life. Today, we keep talking about the next crisis in the economic standings would be the student loan, with so many kids with heavy student loan. And so this is something that both people in this relationship need to understand. If I'm carrying $60,000 of student loan debt and you don't have any, that's very important that both of you know that and know what you're going to try to do to work towards working on it.
Yeah, let's stop and talk about that a little bit more here. How can you make sure that you're getting the full story on how much your better half owes?
You kind of have to watch a person, how they handle money. And what I've always directed my children is, when you're out spending money, are you putting everything on a credit card? Mm-hmm. Does the person speak about carrying credit card balances and making minimum payments only? Or they pay them by cash. So there's a big difference in watching the behavior of a person and how they handle their own money. And that's very telling. So you need to be open to that and be mindful of what's happening.
So what can you do if you find out there's a problem here somewhere?
If you suspect that the person may have a problem, then you need to sit down. This is the time where you have to, if you're going to be in a relationship with someone, you have to be able to understand what you both are trying to do, agree on a financial plan, a budget. You've got to be able to know what the debts are and know what the two of you want to do as far as working towards getting those debts paid. It has to be something. You don't necessarily have to take on the partner's debt, but you have to be very cognizant of what they're doing and have some type of game plan as to how it's going to be worked out and work through this relationship.
Well, since you mentioned that, why don't we talk about this really quick? Do you have a contact number or a website you can send out there to people right now so people can contact CCCS if they're interested?
Yes, certainly, Jeff. They can call us at 1-800-642-2227. And our website is cccs-inc.org.
So, Nina, I've heard that it pays for couples to review each other's credit reports. How does this help you figure out where things stand before you maybe decide to get married or something down the line?
Well, one thing's for sure, when you see it in front of you on paper, there's no way to really hide what's there.
Yeah.
So it's very telling. And especially if you've purchased one where you have a score on it, you can see what the person's credit score, because a lot of things today are based on what your credit score is. The credit report's good in that it covers a past history of up to 7 years of information and how you've spent. So when you're looking at credit reports, if you see that the person, they might be current now, but through the years, they may have had 30-day delinquency, 60 days. They could even have a bankruptcy that's already posted on their credit report. They could have judgments listed in the collection area. You need to know that because that tells you a lot about the way this person has handled their money.
So I understand that we're all entitled to receive one free credit report a year. This is something that we've discussed before in previous interviews. How can couples take advantage of that opportunity?
So they can go to www.annualcreditreport.com, and that website will allow you to pull either all three of the major credit reports, Experian, Equifax, and TransUnion, at one time. We often suggest that, maybe pull one of them and every quarter pull the next one and then pull another one towards the end of the year so that you have a year's worth of information. And it also allows you to keep watch for things such as identity theft to make sure that no one's tapped into your credit during that time. So it's a very good tool to use.
So as a couple, you've looked at where you both stand financially. What other money management questions do you need to discuss now?
You need to know what the person's financial goals are, Jeff. And it's very important that if I'm looking to, maybe I just want to rent. I don't want to be a home buyer. That's just not my thing. So it's very important that those types of issues are discussed prior to getting involved with someone. If you're going to for a lasting relationship, what are their thoughts on saving? Do they save at all? Are they looking at having a large family? Are we both going to work when we have children? Is somebody already assuming that they're not going to work? So those are all important questions that at the very least should be discussed. It's not that they have to make a decision at that time in their life, but it's very helpful in a relationship to at least know where the person's headed with their thoughts on these types of issues. And then, of course, there's the top 3 financial goals for a person would be buying a home or saving for retirement and building children's education funds up. And this is something that we talk about oftentimes at work when we counsel people. Things happen along the way and they're not able to achieve these goals. You have to be able to sit down and understand that things change. You may have to rework budgets. You may have to rework these goals, and you may have to go at it with a different game plan.
Work together as a team.
Yes.
Well, I understand that CCCS has a new program to help couples define and achieve financial goals together. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that, Nina?
We now offer financial coaching, and this is a program for, especially it would be great for a new couple, because it allows you to enroll in a program where you'll be matched up with a financial coach. And the objective is for you to determine what your goals are. And the financial coach is there to carry that goal process out through the course of 1 year. So they're working with you to achieve whatever those goals that the couple's decided that they want to achieve in that first year. For a person who's never had maybe a budget or has an idea of something they want to do, this is a great new idea that's free at this point because it's a pilot program. So by contacting us, they can enroll in this program, and this financial coach will work with them every single month for 1 year.
Well, Nina, before a couple decides to get in touch with CCCS to maybe take advantage of this new program, what else do they need to do?
There are a couple of things that we suggest. Getting back to initially when we were speaking about somebody might be a spender, somebody may be a saver. Likewise, somebody may be better at writing out their bills. So again, having the discussion and determining who's going to have the lead in checking on the finances each month, making sure the bills are paid timely is very important. But at the same token, you don't want to put all of that responsibility on one person, because then when something goes wrong, you tend to blame people. So I oftentimes recommend when we counsel people that you set up a meeting each month. And even if the one person's writing the bills and managing the budget, the other person needs to take part in that, and they need to be very aware of where the money's going.
That brings up another question for me, though. Can a couple successfully live together and still maintain their own separate finances?
They can.
Yeah.
The answer to that is always yes, because what happens is you don't always have to commingle funds, but at the very least you still have a budget that the couple works for.
Sure.
So you can have separate accounts, you can have separate credit accounts, and sometimes it makes sense to do that because you may be with someone who has been struggling and you're very aware of that. And so at the very least, you want to manage your accounts the way you've always done and maybe be a support system for the person who's having trouble. One of the areas that we often look at when we're counseling someone is that people tend to stop in the morning and get a cup of coffee, and that's a couple of dollars, and then they pick up a $6 sandwich at lunch. So you're looking at $8 for the two people. It's $16. That ends up being $80 a week, which adds up to being $300 a month. If you take that same scenario and instead of buying that out, you purchase the coffee and you bring your coffee and you bring your lunch like I do each day, and the kids at work laugh at me, you could actually save $200 a month, and over 12 months, that's $2,400. So again, when you're working in a relationship, this is very important because that becomes money that might allow the two of you to take a vacation. You may be able to pay off something you've been stressing about, or you may be able to put it towards a retirement account.
So, Nina, once couples are living under the same roof together, how do their money talks change?
It changes, Jeff, because their life changes and things happen in people's lives. So obviously, what you start out with your budget and your saving and maybe your spending practices or how you use your credit can change through the years depending on as your family grows. Maybe you lose a job and you have to really, rethink how your budget's set up. There's a lot of factors through the course of a lifetime that's going to make you sit down with this person and rework another budget and another game plan on how to handle your finances. So it really changes over the years.
Well, as always, we have covered a lot of helpful information today, Nina. But before we go, do you have any final advice for us?
It's just so important, Jeff, that people take the time and open this discussion prior to getting involved in a long relationship, because it will make a difference. And if there's problems or issues there, if someone's lived or come from a background where money equates anger and confusion, this is not something you want to find out once you're married and living under the same roof, or you've moved in together and find out that this person's never budgeted. So open discussion is very important. If you're concerned about it, I would just advise you to contact an organization such as ours. I actually remember counseling a couple that came in that had been married for some time, and they had decided to have children. And at that point, the wife was no longer going to work, and the wife was home with the children, and in receiving new credit opportunities, she was signing them.
Ooh.
And it was for the husband. She was signing the husband's name. They made an appointment because she was too afraid to tell him this at home and wanted to have this done in our office. And it was very eye-opening. The husband had no clue. He thought they were coming in for just budgeting. He thought they had 3 accounts and everything was good. And, you know, at the end of that, she pulls out a whole wad of statements and professes that she's done this. And again, if you have an open relationship through this, you don't have to worry about these types of things coming up. There shouldn't be a fear with money or how it's being used. It needs to be, you know, it needs to be something that's brought up regularly.
How can people contact CCCS if they want to come by your offices?
They can call us at 1-800-642-2227 or access us on the web at cccs-inc.org.
Nina Heck, Director of Counseling and Client Services for Consumer Credit Counseling Service of Maryland and Delaware. Thank you so much again, as always, for coming by and giving us much more helpful information.
Thank you, Jeff.